Speaker.
Let us pray. Our Father, keep us mindful of the special and unique opportunity we have to work for our constituents and for our province. And in that work, give us both strength and wisdom. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce for first reading Bill 238, an act for the protection of video display terminal operators. Mr. Speaker, this bill would establish, amongst other things, public policy for the sale and lease of properly tested equipment terminals, workplace operation, inspection and maintenance of terminals, including testing for radiation levels. As well, it would establish periods of rest within and maximum hours within the workplace in a 24-hour period. The bill would provide an operator who believes she may be pregnant or is pregnant with the ability to request not to work at a terminal without loss of pay, seniority, or other benefits, and that request shall be granted. It furthermore provides for regular eye testing, operator education, and the establishment of workplace health and safety committees to specifically deal with the concerns of operators have with regard to health effects and working conditions.
The honourable member for St. Albert has moved first reading of Bill 238, an act for the protection of video display terminal operators. All those in favour of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
A bill being an act for the protection of video display terminal operators, introduced by Honourable Member Mr. Strong, is now read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I would request leave to introduce Bill number 38, the Municipal Government Amendment Act. This bill, Mr. Speaker, does incorporate some of the recommendations of a conflict of interest committee, which has reported recently to the government and was jointly chaired by presidents of two municipal associations. The conflict of interest guidelines are incorporated in this proposed bill. In addition, the bill deals with the method by which municipalities might finance business revitalization zones and repeals the section on bonusing in order to allow a municipality to make agreements based on their own decisions. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the municipalities under this legislation would have new authority to license cats.
The Minister of Municipal Affairs has moved first reading of Bill number 38, Municipal Government Amendment Act 1986. Members of the Assembly wishing to vote in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. First reading is carried.
A bill being Municipal Government Amendment Act 1986, introduced by Honourable Mr. Crawford, is now read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I further would ask leave to introduce Bill 51, the Municipal Statutes Amendment Act. Mr. Speaker, this thin bill deals with two matters, amending the City Transportation Act, which would affect the way that hearings must be advertised when a transportation bylaw is being contemplated, and it would also amend the Regional Municipal Services Act to allow regional agencies to elect their chairman.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs has moved first reading of Bill number 51, Municipal Statutes Amendment Act 1986. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Motion is carried.
A bill being Municipal Statutes Amendment Act 1986, introduced by Honourable Mr. Crawford, is now read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I would request further leave to introduce Bill number 53, the County Amendment Act. Mr. Speaker, this proposed bill would implement the recommendations of the County Act Review Committee and would change certain procedures in respect to the operation of counties. This bill would clarify procedures to be followed in an election or plebiscite. It defines or changes the definition of population for purposes that the population count has to be calculated, and clarifies a number of issues in respect to the county boards of education. Especially, these amendments would result in the elimination of the system of rotation of elected members on boards of education.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs, the member for Edmonton Park Allen, has moved first reading of Bill number 53, County Amendment Act 1986. Those in favour of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion is carried.
A bill being County Amendment Act 1986, introduced by Honourable Mr. Crawford, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to file the applicant's guide to the Alberta Small Business Term Assistance Plan. The program will be launched September 15th. All members of the Assembly.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to table in the House copies of the report and proceedings of the 77th Annual General Meeting of the Alberta Land Surveyors Association.
Introduction of special guests.
Mr. Speaker, I beg your pardon, Minister, please.
Thank you. Monsieur le Président, c'est mon grand plaisir d'introduire 40 étudiants de l'école Laurier Heights, qui est dans l'école bilingue dans l'endroit d'Edmonton-Glenora. Ils viennent de commencer leur 6e niveau dans l'école et j'invite tous les membres de l'Assemblée législative à leur faire un bon accueil à notre Assemblée.
French that I can understand.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce 8 educators, senior educators from Thailand, who are here sent by the Thai government and are taking courses or observing methods of instruction at the University of Alberta, Faculty of Education, accompanied by their leader, Ransri and Antra Sirikai. If they will stand, please, and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you the new group of legislative interns for this coming year. They're seated in the speakers gallery, and I would ask them to rise as I call their names. Aaron Engen, Margaret Baird Apazo, Joanne Schwarzenberger, Murray Macy, Kathleen Marta, Tom McIntosh, Catherine Wolfrey, and one is absent today, Lindsay Parcells. I hope that all members will take due note of this new crop of bright minds and interesting individuals, and they all start work for you on September the 15th. Would you kindly give them the welcome to the Assembly?
Ministerial statements.
Mr. Speaker, I know that many members of the House have expressed concern about the impact on Alberta farmers of the grain handlers' strike and lockout in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to advise the House that yesterday I spoke to the Prime Minister regarding this problem and expressed to him our deep concern that this work stoppage could harm the benefits of Alberta's harvest dramatically. I assured the Prime Minister that our government would support efforts to solve this work stoppage immediately, and it urged him to do so. I was extremely pleased with the Prime Minister's position that he considers this strike tremendously important and is reviewing solutions to the problem on a daily basis. We want Alberta's farmers to know, Mr. Speaker, that our government will do everything possible to prevent this matter from damaging their cash receipts when they need them so badly, and that we will continue to press for a fast end to this work stoppage. Mr. Speaker, I have also asked our Minister of Agriculture, who has some additional information on this matter, to provide that information to the House at this time.
Mr. Speaker, I rise as a follow-up to the Premier's statement to further advise the Assembly of the latest steps taken by our Government of Alberta to see an immediate end to the dispute at Thunder Bay. As the Premier has indicated, he has discussed this issue with the Prime Minister. While we have previously urged the federal government to resolve the central issue of the disruption of service at a port which handles some 55 to 65% of Canada's exports, depending upon the year, this morning, the Honourable Charlie Mayer announced the formation of an emergency task force whose terms of reference appear to be to find ways of avoiding Thunder Bay itself. I commend the move. Such an action is a move in the right direction. However, Mr. Speaker, it would be my hope that the establishment of such would not curtail activities in resolving the dispute quickly. While the idea of a task force is welcome, no amount of extraordinary action which the task force may suggest can overcome the fact that the tremendous shipping capacity which is available at Thunder Bay has been lost to farmers at a time of great need, as our Premier has indicated. Mr. Speaker, Thunder Bay handles 50% more grain than West Coast ports, and the Canadian Wheat Board equalizes delivery opportunities and pool returns. Hence, Alberta farmers can be expected to share equally with their Manitoba and Saskatchewan counterparts in any losses resulting from the closure of Thunder Bay. The work stoppage will really begin to hurt us, Mr. Speaker, at the end of this week or the beginning of next week, if Canada is forced to default on grain sales which normally go through the St. Lawrence and for which the buyer cannot feasibly take shipment from the West Coast. Mr. Speaker, we in this party do not care to lay blame. either on the lap of the union or the grain companies. It takes two parties to create a work shutdown, and we note that both a strike and a lockout are involved in the issue. Blame is irrelevant. Mr. Speaker, what is relevant is that our farmers are being denied an opportunity to obtain a return on their labor. Farmers are being denied the opportunity for cash receipts at a time when those cash receipts are most needed. Mr. Speaker, our government urges the federal government to implement whatever steps necessary, whether through mediation, arbitration, or recall of Parliament, to see an immediate end to the work stoppage at Thunder Bay. Mr. Speaker, I again telex the Honourable Charles Mayor, Minister responsible for the Canadian Wheat Board. And with your consent, Mr. Speaker, I would like to table that telex.
Mr. Speaker, in replying to the ministerial statement, let me first of all say that I applaud the minister for a very wise ministerial statement. And I think he said it clearly that we do not care to lay blame either on the lap of the union or the grain companies. I couldn't say it better, Mr. Speaker, because that solves nobody's problem in a very serious dispute. As the minister said, what is that it's both a strike and a lockout, and blame is irrelevant. The key point is that our Western economy is being decimated, and our farmers are not going to get their grain to market, and that's going to have a serious impact on the farmers of Alberta. That's the key point, rather than laying blame. And so I say to the minister, I think it's a wise ministerial statement. Now, it seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that mediation seems to be a logical first step, that these people should be brought together, and the federal government should make sure that they're brought together. Because if they're not talking, obviously there's going to be no solution to this very serious problem. So I would hope that the federal government would immediately appoint a mediator to involve themselves in this to see if we can get these people talking again. Mr. Speaker, so the official opposition would call on federal parliament and through them, frankly, to both sides in this dispute, to both start to begin bargaining in good faith and come quickly to an agreement, because this dispute is beyond both these sides, both management and labor. It's affecting many other innocent people, and we in the official opposition would hope that that message would get through to both sides and that something would be done, hopefully within the next week. But again, I applaud this ministerial statement as a reasonable document to pass on to both sides.
Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct the first question to the Acting Attorney General. I think he knows a little bit about this portfolio. Mr. Speaker, what steps is the government taking to pursue whether or not the law, in particular Section 22 of the Criminal Code, has been broken, following allegations presented to the Mindbender inquiry today that a witness had been pressured by a 555 supervisor not to tell the truth to the inquiry?
Mr. Speaker, that story has received some prominence, and the key for the law enforcement agencies is always to look at public allegations like that in a very careful way. And that careful way is that no steps should be taken, and no person should have his name associated with a possible charge until every step in the process has been undertaken. And the necessary steps are that if there is credibility to any allegation of a potential commission of a crime, the police would investigate that, and they would do it based on an official complaint duly sworn by a person having reasonable knowledge of the facts.
Well, just supplementary question, Mr. Speaker, to the Acting Attorney General. Is the Attorney General then saying that the Attorney General's Department will not follow up on this matter unless specifically somebody signs a complaint at this time, even though it's a very serious allegation?
Mr. Speaker, it is part of the standard procedure where evidence is taken under oath to examine the transcripts. I believe the parties who are conducting the inquiry are empowered under the Inquiries Act to take evidence under oath. And those transcripts could be examined as to any evidence that might be there indicating the possible commission of any offense. But I stress, Mr. Speaker, in the Assembly and elsewhere, the names of people who may, as a result of some statement made, be investigated as to their conduct shouldn't be bandied about. And I know the Honourable Leader did not do that, but I have some concern for any publicity through the media in that respect.
Well, supplementary question.
Half a moment. Chair hesitates to interject, but if there's some question about the matter, but also with respect to Beauchesne 357, that the possibility of questions being asked which might prejudice a pending trial. And the chair realizes this is not a pending trial, but the consequent action might flow. It's just a caution from the chair about the question and the responses.
Well, fair enough, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate what the Attorney General is saying. I guess I'm more trying to deal with the procedure of a serious allegation and how that might be followed up, because all it is an allegation. And I guess just flowing from that, though, I'll leave it. I think I have the answer, Mr. Speaker, and turn to the Minister of Labour. And just a question to the Minister of Labour is, what assurance is the Minister able to give the people of Alberta that the rides at West Edmonton Mall are now safe, and that the inquiry will be able to get to the bottom of the situation, given, and it's allegations at this point, admittedly, but that there may be pressure on witnesses to falsify testimony?
Mr. Speaker, to answer the first of the two questions, I'm quite satisfied that in view of the inspection that was carried out at West Edmonton Mall the day after the accident and the subsequent provisions that were made both for maintenance and for the recording of that maintenance, I am quite satisfied that at the moment we can give the assurance to Albertans that those rides are safe to the reasonable levels that can be assured for that type of technology. With regard to the other question that was put, I would prefer not to answer it. As you have warned us, we are dealing with potential allegations, and I would prefer not to get into that matter.
Supplementary question to the Minister. The Minister is saying here in the Assembly that he can give Albertans assurances that the rides are safe. On what basis can he give that assurances to the people of Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, I said reasonably safe. It is beyond human power to give an absolute with regard to safety of any mechanical equipment at any given point in time. The provisions that were introduced subsequent to the visit to West Edmonton Mall that Sunday I consider to be adequate for the public safety to be reasonably assured.
Supplementary question, Westlock Surgeon.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Labour. Are there standards implemented by this government for the qualifications for maintenance workers on rides, such as the mine bender or the dropper dune? Do we have a set of standards for their maintenance workers?
Mr. Speaker, there are certain standards that are required for all equipment. I would refer specifically to electrical standards where certain voltages or certain types of equipment must be serviced by certain qualified personnel. I'm satisfied that the maintenance currently of equipment is within those standards. I will leave it to the inquiry to decide whether or not it was prior to the accident.
Second main question, Leader of the Official Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct a second question to the Provincial Treasurer, and it flows on, following up on the memo which I filed yesterday, which I believe the Treasurer called the area of speculation, as the Treasurer put it before I realized he had written me a memo. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Treasurer, in reviewing scenarios, is it standard practice to ask ministers to propose entire budgets for their departments which meet, and I quote, certain reduction targets, or is this something new for the new fiscal problems we face?
Mr. Speaker, it's always been a course of action of this government to have an effective plan when setting the estimates for any year. And obviously, we have certain guidelines which we establish in consultation with our MLAs and our cabinet, which in fact will deal with such things as expenditures and the rate of expansion of those expenditures, and that's a normal course of action for this government to follow.
Well, not that I really expected to get the answer, and I didn't, Mr. Speaker, but I'll move over to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, before commencing on this sort of massive ham-handed cutting exercise, has the Premier established any new mechanism or issued any new direction on such things as wasteful hospitality, travel, or special perk expenditures that may be brought under control?
Mr. Speaker, there's nothing ham-handed about the efforts of the Provincial Treasurer in reviewing with his colleagues in the Cabinet a variety of options that would give him an ability, along with other members of Treasury Board, an ability to assess the impact of certain cuts in certain areas, or for that matter, the impact of increases in certain areas. And Mr. Speaker, that's something that we have done in the past and will continue to do in the future. In terms of wastefulness, Mr. Speaker, wastefulness we are seeking on a constant basis and will always continue to do so. As a matter of fact, as I said earlier in the House, during the review of the estimates, particularly with the opposition, I listened carefully for suggestions about reductions, and in fact found that by far the total number of their suggestions were to increase the budget, not to reduce it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as usual, the Premier's listening with one ear and not hearing what he should. But one of the things we talked about is Speedy Reedy's tour. I don't see you canceling that. But my question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Minister of Education. I noticed by the memo that the Minister has only 3 days to go to meet the Treasurer's deadline for this study. What assessment does the Minister now have on the effect a $129 million cut in her budget would have on local school divisions and property taxpayers?
That's internal.
Mr. Speaker, I'll try and speak up. Mr. Speaker, the priority which this government places on education, and which I personally place on one, is something which is clear in the record and clear in the actions of this government and unparalleled in Canada. But as a responsible legislator as well, I do not want to pass on to the students who are currently in that school system a deficit in this province. I consider there to be a balance between those views. I will look at the directions which we will all consider within the Executive Council, and I will certainly discuss the estimates, the 87-88 estimates of the Department of Education when they appear before this Assembly. However, I want to assure the honourable member that my commitment and this government commitment to quality education in this province will continue.
Supplementary question. That's very nice, very nice. Glad that you love education, and very well. But my question had to do with this memo coming up for 3 days later. What impact will this type of cut that you've been asked to give to the Treasurer, what impact will this have on the property taxpayers of the province of Alberta? That's the question I asked.
Mr. Speaker, as I have clearly indicated, I will be happy to discuss the estimates of 87-88 when they appear before this Assembly.
Thank you. Supplementary question, member for Little Bow.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary question to the provincial treasurer. Could the treasurer indicate whether these same ground rules apply to various crown corporations and quasi-government bodies across the board? And if so, in terms of the Alberta Housing and Mortgage Corporation, will more stringent ground rules be established for that entity?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, we of course are talking about the broad responsibility for preparing budgets for 87-88 from all departments and agencies of government. But to focus, Mr. Speaker, as the member from Norwood has done, or for that matter, the member from Little Bow has done, on some particular department and say what would happen in a 10% reduction would be an inappropriate comparison, simply because we are attempting here to deal with a broad basis approach to this expenditure level, not to focus and to draw red herrings across the exercise, because I think all Albertans are generally in support of control of government expenditures. But moreover, Mr. Speaker, that kind of comparison is a false kind of comparison. What we are doing, Mr. Speaker, is taking an appropriate action, good management practices, and an overview of, of all government expenditures, being sure that it meets the objectives that we have set down, provides the high level of service to the people of Alberta, and is within our means. And that is what government's elected to do.
Member for West Loch Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, in spite of our Minister's red herrings, would the Premier now, he shrugged it off for some weeks, consider the establishment of a, by pardon expression, Nielsen type of committee to look at the fat in the provincial budget and prioritize the areas that have to be looked at rather than leaving it all from one department to another department?
Mr. Speaker, I did consider that, and I don't feel that it is appropriate. After all, we must remember what brought on the need for the Nielsen task force. It was the many years of huge, tremendous liberal spending and deficit in Ottawa, in which they loaded up debt on the people of Alberta and of the rest of Canada, and that it was required then, Mr. Speaker, by the current government. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, he asked the question. He's got to sit there and hear the answer. So, Mr. Speaker, it is not appropriate in our case because the people of Alberta know that they have had a history of governments who, in Alberta over the past 14 years, that have not only not spent more than they received, but have actually spent less and have put money away for the future. So it is not required in Alberta. We will continue, Mr. Speaker, to be diligent about expenditures in this province, and we will never follow the lead of the Liberal Party who loaded debt on the people that they represented.
Member for Calgary Northwest.
Supplementary question to the Treasurer, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the Speaker to reassure this House that he'll continue with the responsible fiscal management of this province's funds and not use whatever means in his power to reduce the expenditure for the betterment of this province?
The Speaker trusts that the question was asked to the Treasurer rather than the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, that of course is the broad mandate which we have already outlined and which we accept as being our responsibility and which we expect to carry out, Mr. Speaker.
Main question, Leader of the Liberal Party.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for Calgary should have called Sheikh Yamani to get the answer. Could I direct this question, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, or I'm sorry, to the Minister of Energy? We're concerned about compromises that the provincial government made in negotiating with the federal government. What do complementary initiatives, for instance, that the federal energy minister spoke about yesterday in Calgary include? Do they reduce provincial royalties, gas deregulation? Is provincial reduced royalties and gas deregulation an integral part of complementary initiatives?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member were to refer to the speech of the honourable federal minister with the federal minister's own words with respect to what he meant by provincial initiatives, and I would simply quote, "Over the past month, we've had discussions with provincial governments. I can tell you that we've established a mutual recognition of the depth of the problem and the need for all governments to act in accordance with their responsibilities." That's what he meant.
Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make any more sense with an Alberta accent than it does a Quebec one, but is the Minister of Energy now obliged to go ahead with the November 1st deregulation of natural gas as a result of the federal government's pledge to end the PGRT? Yes or no? Oui or no?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable leader can slur the federal minister's accent if he wishes. However, the situation is that there is no agreement, no strings tied to the removal of PGRT.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, has the Minister determined how many jobs will be lost in Alberta when natural gas is deregulated, given that deregulation will result in 20 to 30% reduction in the price for our natural gas is sold, and consequently less money, less jobs?
There's difficulty with that line of questioning because part of it relates to a bill that's on the order paper, which is being debated. It also introduces an element of being hypothetical, perhaps as a way to rephrase the question.
Okay. Does the minister, I'll rephrase it then, has the minister's department calculated out the number of jobs that will be lost when deregulation goes in because of the drop in the natural gas prices?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've indicated to the honourable member on many occasions in this House, November 1st is the date that we are shooting for in terms of natural gas deregulation. And there are a number of steps that need to be taken before we proceed. And we are working as rapidly as we can and working with the industry and the provincial governments of Saskatchewan and British Columbia and the federal government to see that we can resolve those concerns. And that's what we're doing, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, great. We gain X jobs for PGRT coming off. We lose X plus Y jobs for deregulating gas. For example, to the minister, has he given any consideration to the fact that this government will be forced in extending an assistance package to the petrochemical and fertilizer industries when natural gas is deregulated and we no longer have a natural advantage?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable leader makes a number of assumptions in his opening remarks, and I think those assumptions are such that they need to be checked out, and he may very well be wrong. But we do know that one of the advantages we've had in this province over the years with respect to our petrochemical industry is the access to feedstock right here in the province, and that will continue to be the case. Possibly the Honourable Minister of Economic Development would care to supplement my remarks.
Mr. Speaker, after July the 1st, after that 20-month period where the government of Alberta assisted the petrochemical industry in bridging a period of time where there was a difficulty with feedstock pricing to allow negotiations between the petrochemical producers and the producers of natural gas and the shippers to undertake discussions. They've undertaken discussions and have reached a temporary agreement that takes them through until November 1st. It would depend, of course, upon the conditions that the Minister of Energy outlined as to whether or not deregulation would occur on the 1st of November. But those discussions between the producers, the industry and the shippers are continuing. I've had discussions as well with the petrochemical industry, and they continue to support deregulation of natural gas.
Supplementary question, Calgary Forest Lawn.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Energy. In the light of the Federal Minister of Energy's announcement that recently, what assurance can the Minister give this House that royalties in Alberta gas and oil will not be reduced any further?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have indicated to the industry that we welcome the proposals that they would submit to us, and we've said that whatever those proposals are, we would review. And whether they be royalties, whether they be stabilization programs, whatever they are, we'll review them.
Leader of the Representative Party, followed by the member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Agriculture, and I want to say I appreciated the statement of support and action by the Premier and the Minister today with regards to our agricultural concern. My question to the Minister is with regards to details at this point in time. In terms of the commitments from the Prime Minister and from the federal government, was there any commitment with regards to timing of action in terms of putting in place the mediator or else reconvening Parliament to deal with the strike lockout?
Mr. Speaker, the federal representatives gave us the assurance of their deep concern as it related to the agricultural sector's movement of grain from Western Canada. We didn't feel that we should tie their hands to any detail at this time, whereby we should leave it flexible enough for them to come to grips with how they can come to an immediate end to a very pressing matter that has a detrimental impact on our agricultural sector in the West.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary question to the Minister. Indications are that some 400 cars that were going to the east are now diverted to the west coast ports. Could the Minister indicate whether that plan is in place and whether there is a longer-term plan that could affect significantly the sales of Alberta wheat if such a plan is in place?
Mr. Speaker, prior to responding in any specific way to the honourable member, I should indicate to him that there is a negative impact, as I indicated in my statement, on Alberta farmers, even though we do ship lesser amounts of grain through Thunder Bay, because the Canadian Wheat Board equalizes the hurt that is caused by this strike. So there is going to be an equal amount of hurt come to our province, even though we do ship a lesser amount of grain through Thunder Bay. I read the same press reports whereby they did indicate there has been 400 grain cars, which have been, it has been suggested whereby there is a change in direction. But that is what I understand is the purpose of the task force that has been announced by the Minister of the Canadian Wheat Board, Mr. Charlie Mayer, to examine ways whereby they can divert grain to other terminals throughout Canada to hopefully meet our grain sale commitments.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary question to the Minister. The possibility of a longshoreman strike on the West Coast could take place within a week. As I understand, the conciliator's report comes down as of today. Could the Minister indicate whether any plans are in place that have been learned through the discussions with the Federal Minister or the Prime Minister or other sources that are in place to deal with such a strike situation that could occur on the West Coast?
Mr. Speaker, I know they are concerned about it, and as the honourable member for Little Bow has indicated, there is a possibility as it relates to the longshoremen, because their contract does expire on the 22nd of September. But it should also be pointed out that the grain handlers, their contract does not expire until well into the new year.
Supplementary, okay. Member for West Loch Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, it's nice to know that the Prime Minister is now answering his phone calls at least till after Pembina by-election. But could the Premier tell Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Premier how he thinks that the federal government, or what extra bee did he put in the Prime Minister's bonnet to get him to solve the strike at Lakehead when that contract has been expired since December of '85. This government has had 8 months and has done nothing to now. What did he do to suddenly get him to start moving, or is he going to move?
Mr. Speaker, it may be that the leader of the Liberals had some trouble getting replies to his phone calls when he phoned the former Prime Minister, or the current one for that matter. I don't have any trouble with that regard, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, my discussions with the Prime Minister were good ones. He expressed his concern that matched ours, and that he and his colleagues were dealing with the work stoppage on a daily basis, and appreciated the phone call and the offers of support and the strength of our feelings that we want Alberta's farmers to be protected in every way possible.
Supplementary information, Minister of Agriculture, and then...
Mr. Speaker, supplementary information with the House as it relates to the honourable member's inaccuracies again, whereby there has been a federal conciliator's report brought forward, so there has been some action on part of the federal government. And again, the honourable member is incorrect, but we're accustomed to that in this House, Mr. Speaker. And the grain terminals had accepted that report, whereby the union had rejected it. And if you'd like the details as to the report that was forthcoming from the federal conciliator, we'd be more than happy to give it to him.
Good. Member for Edmonton Norwood.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. I think everybody would say they're concerned. That's an easy thing to say, but my question is to the Premier. They had a recent cabinet minister meeting, the major cabinet throughout, and I did not see once this particular dispute mentioned. And my question is to the Premier. Did the Premier say to the Prime Minister that we did not notice this, and wondered if it was even brought up at the latest cabinet meetings that they had?
Mr. Speaker, it's not my habit, as it is the Honourable Leader of the Opposition's, to get his information through the media.
Member for Red Deer North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister of Agriculture. Considering that lost grain sales may never be regained, and in order to explore all avenues to halt the devastating effects on farmers caught in the current strike by grain handlers, has the Minister of Agriculture, along with the communiques he has already sent, also sent communiques to the leaders of the federal and provincial NDP parties to ask them to use their ties with labor leaders to get them to reconsider the crippling timing of this strike right in the middle of harvest?
Mr. Speaker, in response to the very legitimate question brought forward by the honourable member, I indicated to the honourable member from Vegreville some days ago in this House and asked if he would help us resolve the situation by making representations to the affiliate of the New Democratic Party, and that being the president of the NFU, whereby they have endorsed the strike, and we would hope that a farm organization and representations by the NDP would involve themselves in trying to bring the two sides together.
Clarification. No, for the sake of the NFU and for truth in this assembly.
That's right.
There's even NFU members that are part of the Conservatives, and I wish the member they are not an affiliate of the New Democratic Party. And I wish the minister would retract that because it's unfair to both sides.
Points made on both sides of the House. Member for Edmonton Centre. No. All right. Good. The chair. The chair recognizes the member for Edmonton Centre, followed by the member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Point of order, I would...
To you, honourable member. Points of order at the end of question period. But I... Honourable member, rest assured the chair will recognize the member on a point of order at the end of question period. Member for Edmonton Centre, followed by the member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Moving along. In his response to my budget estimate query, the Minister of Hospitals and Medical Care has stated that the cost to the province of educating one doctor in Alberta is $80,000, although I've heard others say that it's well over $100,000 to train one doctor. Now that hundreds of medical students are returning to the two medical schools in Alberta, I have some questions to the Minister of Advanced Education about areas in which medical students learn so little. Why, for instance, are there no courses of instruction for doctors and little clinical experience done or work done in the areas of addiction and substance abuse, when clearly these are major and growing areas of debilitating disease in Alberta?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't have the answer to those questions. I'd be pleased to go to the source that the honourable member ought to have and get them for him. Our universities are autonomous. The faculties, of course, are governed by deans and distinguished medical staffs, and the course of studies are developed there.
Yes, in the recent curricular review, they were disappointed there wasn't more suggestions from government. What initiative is the minister taking to encourage medical schools to make mandatory courses in nutrition and community health, which are now mandatory parts of the new curriculum at the Harvard Medical School?
Well, the same answer stands, Mr. Speaker, although I don't mind relating to the honourable member that when I was Minister of Hospitals and Medical Care, the matter of the lack of training in economics and in nutritional matters, and the apparent lack of interest in the whole area of gerontology took up many hours of discussion between myself and members of my staff.
Now that you're Minister of Advanced Education, supplementary, will the minister at least take some initiative to meet with the respective deans of the medical schools to, as he suggested already, initiate some elective courses in the areas of healthcare economics or the role of physicians in containing healthcare costs?
Well, certainly that's a suggestion that we'd be glad to take under consideration along with the others we've received, Mr. Speaker.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker, just not to leave anything untouched here. As the minister's already said, geriatrics is a neglected area, and since 60% of doctors' work is with the elderly, when will the minister encourage improvements in the area of geriatric medicine as well as in the areas of death, dying, and palliative care, and to make some positive steps specific soon?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is opening up a debate which is very interesting. It would be nice if young students all enrolled in the courses that the government believed they should enroll in, but that isn't how life works. I believe many young Albertans entering the faculties of medicine are aware of the challenges and openings that are there in not only gerontology, but in the field of psychiatry and the job opportunities that are available for them when they leave the academic environment. But it's very difficult to persuade an independent-minded young person to take those courses if other fields of study are of higher interest to them.
Member, Minister, supplementary information.
Mr. Speaker, just to supplement my colleague's answer, I want to just make members aware of some initiatives that this government is supporting in the field of community health and supporting initiatives at the universities in our province. Just one that members might be interested in is that the government provides, through the Department of Community and Occupational Health, provides a bursary for students in the area of speech pathology. And of course, that's a very important initiative in our health system, in our health units throughout the province. And Mr. Speaker, there are a host of those initiatives, and I welcome the members' comments and suggestions, and certainly would welcome any others. And perhaps you might like to put that matter on the order paper, and we could have a very timely and useful debate on the matter.
Member for Calgary Buffalo, supplementary.
Yes, supplementary to the Minister of Advanced Education. Mr. Speaker, the recent problems at the Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary have reflected the national shortage of doctors to treat children. Does the government feel that it has any role to play in structuring the medical education system to fill the medical needs of the community, or is it leaving this totally to the universities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm a little puzzled as to how to approach that question. Our whole society is based on rights relating to mobility. Our whole healthcare system is based on an element of portability and universality. And certainly it's not because of lack of funding that at any one time there may be one or more shortages of a particular kind of specialized staff at one of our hospitals. Now, while the honourable member has correctly pointed out that there's a shortage this year of specialized pediatricians at a hospital in Calgary, on the other hand, there's developing a centre for very specialized cardiac care, including organ transplantation at a hospital here in Edmonton. So those things come and go. There's an ebb and flow to them. And the hospitals within our nation share resources. As a provincial government, I think it's fair to say that we've done more than our share by way of making equipment and financial support available to try and encourage all the necessary staff that we can. Not even to mention an unmatched program of medical research, which is attracting many specialists and a great mass of brain power to this province, which is going to benefit the whole country. But notwithstanding those efforts, we're still going to, I think, from time to time experience shortages as other communities do in certain specialties.
Member for Edmonton Goldbar, followed by the member for Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Community and Occupational Health. In 1985, the former Minister of Social Services announced the establishment of a children's mental health project to design and implement an effective and coordinated service system in the area of children's mental health. Not surprisingly, Mr. Speaker, the Project Committee's October 85 report suggested that children's mental health services in the province of Alberta are often uncoordinated, fragmented, and poorly articulated. May I ask the Minister then, Mr. Speaker, when will the committee's formal consultation paper on children's mental health services, scheduled for an early 1986 release, be available for public information and input?
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the member's question. As a matter of fact, I had a very thorough and lengthy briefing on that matter this very morning. And I look forward to releasing that document with the cooperation and consultation of my colleague, the Minister of Social Services, as well as others of my colleagues who are involved in that very important area. I hope to release that document in the days ahead and look forward to a very extensive consultation throughout the province so that all Albertans can have a chance to respond. Because, Mr. Speaker, as the member has raised the issue, so too has the member for Westlock Sturgeon in days past. It's something that this province is very, very concerned about, and it's the focus, I believe, the focus on the family as a very important and essential unit in the delivery of good quality mental health care is something that document is going to focus on.
Mr. Speaker, a supplementary. It's good news. In the interim, will the government be taking any immediate action on any of the committee's recommendations in order to improve the state of children's mental health services in the province?
Mr. Speaker, I think it would be a little premature to respond one way or the other on that. But I'm looking forward to this consultation paper and to the results of the process that will follow its release.
Mr. Speaker, can the minister give us assurance that the evaluation and implementation of the committee's recommendations will not be delayed further by the separation and ministerial responsibility between mental health services and child welfare, particularly in light of the fact that children's mental health services were described by the committee as fragmented, uncoordinated, even before that separation occurred?
Mr. Speaker, perhaps my colleague, the Minister of Social Services, might like to supplement my answer, but I can say yes.
Also yes.
A final supplementary, Mr. Speaker. When can we expect to see the implementation of a coordinated, comprehensive, and effective plan for delivery of children's mental health services, given that the issue has now had a six-year chronology that began with the 1980 McKinsey report?
Mr. Speaker, I couldn't give a commitment as to final timing. We will release this paper, as I've said, in the days ahead. We will begin, we'll have a thorough consultation process, and I would hope that following that process that we would be able to take some quick and well thought out and responsive action.
Supplementary or main question, Edmonton Avonmore? Supplementary question.
Mr. Minister, in view of the fact that in 1984, 47 children under the age of 19 died by their own hand, and 50 to 100 times as many tried, what initiatives is the minister taking to deal with this most serious problem?
Mr. Speaker, there was a lengthy debate in this assembly put forward on a motion put forward by my colleague, the member for Olds-Didsbury, on that very important subject. And if the member would like to go back and review Hansard debate, she would see that the member would see that there was a very good debate at that time. If I may, Mr. Speaker, just to cite some of the initiatives we're taking, we in this province are the only province in the country, the only jurisdiction in the world that has a provincial suicidologist. And that person is housed within our department and is responsible for a number of programs of education, of information, of training throughout the province. And through our suicide prevention provincial advisory committee under the chairmanship of Mrs. Maxine Richardson, that committee is advising me on any number of important initiatives in the whole suicide field. I won't let my enthusiasm for this important initiative, Mr. Speaker, get away on me. So if I may, I'll contain my comparison to the only province in this country who has such a suicidologist on staff.
Supplementary question? Quickly. She's had her final. Oh, I'm sorry. Main question, Edmonton Avonmore. Apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, school opened, and issues of curriculum and costs have arisen, so I would direct my questions to the Minister of Education. On June 24th, the Minister stated in the House that in terms of implementation of secondary education policy, only 2 changes would be taking place this fall. In view of the Minister's comments a week ago Friday, has she changed her position in matter to this matter of this point, and is the curriculum now being implemented?
Honourable Minister, the time for question period has expired. Might we complete this series of questions? Is there agreement? Opposed? The chair here, no. Do we agree to give unanimous consent to carry on with question period? Agreed. Opposed? Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome an opportunity to clarify what may have been a misunderstanding. The 2 changes that affect the school curriculum this fall with respect to the secondary curriculum are that the pass grade will move from 40 to 50%, and the B options will be dropped. Not all options, but simply those entitled the B options, unless there is a particular local preference for those. The health and education program, which is the question the honourable member is asking, is optional for school boards in the fall of '86 and will be mandatory in the fall of '87.
The minister also stated on June 24th that she intended to appoint a public advisory committee to aid and ensure that the implementation of the new policy would be progressing and would meet needs. Has that committee been appointed, and if so, who is on this committee?
It hasn't been finally appointed, Mr. Speaker. I have sent out letters to the various groups who I think should send representatives to that policy implementation committee. I'm also considering other members to be appointed to the committee and hope to have it in place by the end of this month.
Are they going to travel?
Has the minister involved parents of school-aged children in looking at this new policy to ensure that they understand the implications of the decisions made by the department?
Mr. Speaker, one of the groups which I hope to have effective representation from on the committee is in fact parents as well. If I can find a student, I would like a student on that committee as well.
Final supplementary to the minister, and this is in regard to costs. In view of the high unemployment rate and the large number of families on social assistance in this province, has the minister considered banning user fees in education, that is, those fees for book rentals, lockers, per credit course charges, to ensure that all children in Alberta receive an equal opportunity for a solid education?
Mr. Speaker, I will always believe that Albertan children should have equal access and opportunity to education, and I believe they do. The head of the Alberta Federation of Labour has approached some school boards in certain cities in the province in an attempt to get those boards to pull off certain fees which are incidental to the students' needs. They are fees, extra charges for things like field trips, rental plans for some textbooks. I don't believe that the fee structure is unreasonable in the minds of Albertans, and I do not intend to make a direction to school boards that they no longer implement those fees for their students.
Supplementary, Calgary-Buffalo.
Is the minister in a position to tell the House when the long-awaited School Act will be tabled for public review?
I kind of thought people were sick of me talking about the School Act and when it would come in, but clearly legislation, I hope, will be introduced in this Assembly in the spring of 1987. As I've also committed in this Assembly, I hope to have a framework document available for public review prior to the introduction of legislation.
Point of order, member, Leader of the Official Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it had to review a misleading statement by the Minister of Agriculture that I'm not particularly worried about the New Democratic Party, but he said that it was the National Farmers Union was affiliate of the NDP. That's untrue, and the NFU, as the minister, I believe, is well aware. It's an independent farm organization. I think it's unfair that they're unable to protect themselves here in the House. So I think it's only fair that the minister retract that statement, which is untrue, as I believe he knows it is.
Mr. Speaker, I'm more than happy to concede to that request, but let me share with him I indicated that the NFU was an affiliate of the NDP. I've always been under the impression that every election that I've been involved in, they've endorsed the New Democratic Party, but in the event that the Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party wishes to disassociate himself from the NFU, I'm willing to accept that. But I want to share with the honourable member that my position is that I want to work with all farm organizations. I might on occasion disassociate myself with statements that they make, but I want to associate myself with all organizations. I will retract if the honourable member finds that my word affiliate was too strong a word, but I'm reminded of a saying of my father, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Honourable Minister, perhaps one could give a less qualified response, Honourable Member. Just withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, I'm more than happy to withdraw, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker,
Leader,
I'm sorry.
House Leader, just a moment. The Chair on this occasion had some concern with the question as phrased by the member for Red Deer North, let alone the response and the other events that ensued. And the difficulty, of course, is that the House on occasion has drifted into wandering away from precision with regard to questions and answers. And the difficulty, of course, that there are indeed citations from Beauchesne that can be referred to, and the Chair indeed will do so with respect to citation 359, and honourable members may well see how the House has been adhering strictly to the letter of the law or not. And citation 359 reads that with respect to questions, a brief question seeking information, so forth, and number one, it must be a question, not an expression of an opinion, representation, argumentation, nor debate. And there's no doubt about it that with respect to some of the questions, things have somewhat wandered. But having said that, one should also, of course, refer to citation 358 in Beauchesne, subsection 2, answers to questions should be as brief as possible, should deal with the matter raised, and should not provoke debate. So, two-sided question and answer, and I'm sure all members of the Assembly will take those words, those wise words of Beauchesne into consideration with respect to future question periods. Orders of the day.
Mr. Speaker, on the point